So my name's Doug Pepper, and very happy to be hosting this panel on how leading marketers are using social media. Just a quick background on myself so you know a bit about me. I'm a partner at a venture capital firm called Interwest Partners. We're an early stage venture capital firm that's based down in Menlo Park on Sand Hill Road. We've been around for a little over 30 years investing in early stage technology companies. And we're currently investing our 10th fund, which is a $650 million fund. And all told, we're managing about $2 billion in capital right now. I've been at the firm for 13 years. And prior to that, was at Goldman Sachs and also spent time at Amazon.com up in Seattle. And in terms of focus areas, and I think part of the reason why I'm on this panel as well is just I've had, and my firm has had, a real focus on marketing technologies for the past 8-10 years. And some of the companies you may have heard of that we're involved with, Badgeville on the engagement and gamification side, Marketo, where we were the first investors in marketing automation, SpreadFast in the social marketing space, Optimizely, which is a real explosive leader in the web optimization space. We were the first investors in Optimizely, and Get Satisfaction in the community space. So quite a number of companies that are in and around the marketing space, and that's what we get excited about. In terms of the panel, I'll let each of them introduce themselves, but I think we've got a great blend of backgrounds and experiences and roles here with all social media marketers, but also a CEO and also marketers who are happen to work at vendors that I think are very relevant to this space as well. And I think we're having this panel at an interesting time where it's clear that the hype around social media has really died down, and now what we're talking about is a very real new channel for marketing. And the question is how to really approach that and bring expertise and great execution to it. And the goal of this panel is to really bring insights and hopefully some specific best practices to you all, given their expertise. So why don't we just start maybe with you, Liz, on background, and then we can go from there.
Sure. So I'm Liz Pierce. I'm the CEO of Liquid Planner. We're a SaaS-based project management tool that lets teams collaborate and manage their work together in a single workspace. I have a marketing background, so I held marketing positions at Sony PlayStation, at Google, and at Amazon before joining the startup world. And in many ways, I think our business is a marketing-driven business. So I have a lot of thoughts and ideas around social media, and I'm excited to talk about it today.
My name is Jason Miller. I social media strategy at Marketo. Marketo is marketing automation software. Previously to that, I worked at Sony in the marketing department, and a little company called Market Tools, which was purchased by SurveyMonkey. And I've been at Marketo for about 18 months now.
We were investors in Market Tools also, so I didn't actually know that.
Hi, I'm Patience Elfing, and I am Director of Global Strategic Accounts for a company called Kenshu. And we develop search and social media marketing technology for advertisers. I started in display in 2007, working for a publisher, and then I have experience also in gaming, so developing advert games for companies like Paramount, large advertisers working for Viacom.
That's great. So obviously an impressive group with a diverse set of roles and experiences. I thought I'd start just at the top, which is to ask, where do you think we are in the evolution of social marketing? Are we still super early days? Is it mature? Have we jumped the shark and it's no longer interesting? Just give the audience a sense for where you think we are in that evolution. And anybody, you can start, Patience, if you want.
So I don't think that it's quite nascent anymore. I think that it's definitely not mature. I think a few years back, social media was a place that advertisers knew they needed to be, but not necessarily knew why they needed to be there. Now everybody has a Facebook page, a Twitter page. Then it was about content. Then it was about socializing that content. And now it's really about how is that content and how is social media affecting your bottom line. So I really think that this is the beginning of being able to start understanding how to leverage it better to affect business goals, right? And so I think 2013 is really the year we're starting to think about measurement and how to drive ROI in social media. So it's really now becoming a charter for social media managers, whether it's paid or owned media, to start reporting up and saying, here's actually the effect of it. You know, you've been giving me some leeway, just trusting that this is doing something for our company, but now we actually have to prove it. So I think in that sense, that part's new. And I mean, we obviously have a long way to go. I don't think social's going anywhere, and I think it's bleeding into every division in every company now. It's not just a social media division that's centralized. I think it's, you know, many different departments and companies now are taking on social aspects to their business and marketing initiatives. So I think a little of both, a little old, a little new.
Any other opinions there?
Yeah, I think that I look at it this way, and he has some really good points there, and I'd like to build on that. 2011 was the year of social, 2012 was content, and now everybody's getting on board. It's like, what do you do now? You have social, you have content, and I think she touched on it, that this is the year of converged media. It's paid, owned, and earned, and then integrated marketing. So no longer is social a silo. You break that down. You have to integrate social on every one of your campaigns and throughout the company. Cross-functional approach to this is the future of where it's heading. No longer is a marketing department siloed over here doing their campaigns while social's over here doing something different. Now you have to integrate the two, and you have to measure the stuff, and you can't pull the ROI. The technology is out there, so there's no more question on whether or not it's working or not. It's on who you have in place to measure it.
I would say we're kind of at the tween stage. You know, we're all still a little awkward with it. We don't know exactly quite how to act, what to measure, how to talk about it, how to integrate it. We know we should be doing it. We know that people that are ahead of us are doing it really well, but it hasn't reached kind of mainstream, you know, really running at full speed.
So I think those are all good answers. You know, I think the next question is based on some data that we have. SpreadFast is one of our investments that's in the social marketing space. You know, their data shows that on average, their customers have 51 social accounts. Some have as many as 1,000. And Altimeter research says that the average company has 178 different points of social presence. And what that leads to is a tremendous amount of noise. It's messy. How do you cut through that noise and really measure? I think you brought that up, Patience. How do you cut through the noise and measure what's effective and report back that there's real ROI there?
Yeah, so ironically, we just partnered with SpreadFast, so my company that develops this advertising technology. Our core functionality is really focused on paid, and we're never going to get into the owned media side, although social channels try to push you that way. Facebook, you know, always asks us, you know, are you going to get into providing this type of support? And we won't, but we are agnostic, and we do want to partner with best-of-breed companies, so SpreadFast being one, Shoutlet being another, which does the same thing as SpreadFast. And the value there for marketers is really, once you've reached that point where you have to employ a tool, you have to go out there, and because you have 100 or so pages and 20 different community managers, once you do that, and you're also using a paid platform, you really want to measure the efficacy of what's that owned media doing for your paid initiatives. So one thing that's available now to marketers is you can actually measure if your customers are seeing organic posts on Twitter or Facebook, and then 2 days later they've gone to the website, they've clicked on that organic post. 2 days later they come to Facebook, they clicked on a paid ad, right? And then maybe they get retargeted with a Facebook exchange. So they're now being retargeted on Facebook with an ad. They click on that. A few days later they go search on Google. They're doing some price comparison for that product, and they actually convert, let's just say, on Bing. Right, so this is all now measurable, and so with the partnership between SpreadFast and my company, you can actually track that whole path to conversion, and you can say, oh, all right, well, maybe I don't get direct ROI from Facebook, so what I've been doing is just putting most of my money into search. Well, in fact, if you start measuring it, you can see if you put $50,000 into your social campaigns, you're actually lifting your revenue on search maybe 25%, right? So this is something that marketers need to start looking at and being able to measure so you can make more informed decisions about where you're putting your budget and your time and resources.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. Some really good points as well. I mean, I look at it like this. Inbound social is an inbound marketing tool or an inbound marketing tactic, but if you look at it, inbound at any strategy, any marketing campaign, any strategy, inbound is not enough. she touched on it really well when she said paid. If you really want to make a difference, if you want to make an impact, you got to put some paid behind it. You got to have the organic plus the paid. It's all converged media, and then that's where it comes in the owned as well. But the important thing is social is a channel that works differently, right? I work primarily in the B2B space, so I have that kind of that vision all the time. But in my world, the buying process is 70% complete before anybody's ready to speak to a sales rep. So my job is to get our content, our helpful content in front of them while they're making these decisions, while they're doing their research. And social is a great channel for that. But if anyone tells you in the B2B world that their prospects and customers are not on Facebook, I'd say they're out of their mind, right? There's 1 billion people on Facebook. Now, are they there to be sold to? Absolutely not. But they are there to be engaged with, entertained, give them something to share, raise that affinity on Facebook, and then push an offer here every once in a while. It's called the 411 rule. It's Joe Polizzi coined this from the Content Marketing Institute. But the other thing to keep in mind there is all these social channels need to have their content, they're powered by content, just like a marketing campaign is. They need to be tailored for each individual place. So you have to have a presence everywhere. But the idea is content, and you can't have this boring content that you can't use a white paper anymore. You have to. If it helps if you have a comedian on your team, hire a comedian. Don't hire a journalist. Hire a comedian and get that person in there to come up with some fun stuff for social, because that's what people react to. Once you get that affinity raised from social channels, especially in Facebook, you pump in a little offer here and there for an event or for an ebook download, and it works wonders.
Coming from where I sit, working in what's essentially a startup, we approach it more from a lean point of view. So we're really experimenting with different social networks, measuring what we can, seeing what works, seeing what engagement we get. We are probably not as sophisticated as an enterprise when we're looking at social, but we do have a gut sense for how customers engage on these platforms, for what that means for our brand awareness. And we certainly see impacts in ways that are not always directly attributable to social. But if you look back at our traffic patterns to our website over time, the direct traffic has been accelerating at a much faster rate than any of our paid channels. And we believe that social is driving a lot of this. We certainly see evidence of people talking about our brand more often when they engage with us on social, and that crosses social platforms. So, I think when you are just starting to dip your toe in the water of the real sophisticated analytics, you can try and experiment with different platforms and really get some kind of low-hanging fruit measurements about what's working.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One question for you, Liz. Obviously, you, as a CEO, your main job is to figure out how to build a team around you.
Yeah.
You have lots of other jobs too, but how do you think about what are the characteristics of a really successful social marketing person, executive, and the team as well? How do you structure a team that works? Any insights there?
Yeah, I think Jason hit on a point that resonates with our belief, which is that it's all about content. We were interviewing a candidate for a job around SEO and campaigns, and she interviewed with our content writer. And her question to us was, why would you hire a writer before you hire this position? And we have been investing in content for a while now, and none of our programs will run without content. So that's really laying the foundation for more developed programs and offerings in social, in paid, in PR, in other channels.
It's a really interesting topic. I was having this conversation with one of the folks at Copyblogger, and if you look at Copyblogger, these guys are the masters of content. They're thought leaders in this space. They do it well. They practice what they preach. But the conversation was, where is PR and social? Because there's so much crossover, right? Is it better to have a blog post on copyblogger.com or the third page of the New York Times? And that's the big question now. What's more powerful? What's more driving more traffic? Well, the answer is they're both really important, but there's so much overlap that I think the future of this process is going to be rolled into, and this is how Copyblogger did, and this is how we do it at Marketo, is you take PR, social, and content, roll it into one team, reporting to a VP. And now everything's aligned. Now there's cross-functional, like he mentioned Altimeter Group. That's kind of their analysts, so they're PR, but they're also thought leaders in the social space. So I know Jeremiah, and I talk to Jeremiah once a week, but so does our PR team. But now we're all on one team communicating together. So PR, social, and content moving forward, I think that's the progressive future of where we're all heading with the social aspect of this.
And actually, Jeremy just came out with a report yesterday that talked about the different ways that social media teams are structured. So kind of centralized, decentralized, hub and spoke, and then multiple hub and spoke and holistic, and talked about just the different ways companies are setting up their organization around social media. And it talked about, I think, the most popular and the model that's growing and is more effective is the dandelion, so the multiple hub and spoke, but you've got a centralized team, but then you give teams throughout your organization, some guidelines, and then they have their teams, and you give them some creative freedom. And so I think in that fact, that's where we can see that our ecosystem's evolving, because now, like I said, it's disseminating throughout the organization. But it's a good report. If you guys want to take a look at it, it just came out yesterday.
That's great.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. In our company, we have one person who is responsible for social media. And what is great to see is other people on the team getting involved, but they really take the lead, and the social media manager sets the tone for what we talk about, kind of defines the topics that we talk about, and everyone within the company puts their own individual spin on it. So you see people's creativity come out, and that really enforces, I think, the personality of the brand and who's really behind the company.
Yeah, I mean, that leads to a question I was going to ask later, but I think it's relevant, is, how do you get the whole company involved with amplification of social? I know, Jason, you've got some thoughts on that, but Liz, for you specifically as a CEO, should and how does a senior executive at a company take part or lead the social media effort?
Yeah, I certainly can think of examples where the CEO of a company is not on social anywhere, and the company's doing great. And other examples of companies where, the CEO is really the figurehead for that brand. And when you think of that brand, you think of that personality. So if you are a brand that's looking to raise your visibility, and you have someone who does have something to say, who can get out in front of an audience and represent the brand really well, you want to invest in that. So I think you kind of have to take your cue from the personalities involved. It's not a must-have, but it's a tactic you can use if you're lacking in that area.
And then Jason, I think everyone would love to hear what you guys are doing, and we're seeing a lot of startups that are helping enterprises to harness the employees to amplify messages, but you guys are already doing some of that, aren't you?
Well, there's a couple ways that I look at this. Number one, I think one of the most overlooked things is the blog, right? The blog is your mothership for all your social media channels. I call it like the dude from Big Lebowski, right? It's the social media rug that ties the room together. You got to have a place to launch everything. Your content's got to live somewhere. So you got to get that blog going. And if you have a company that your employees that love your company, right, and that you hired them because they're A players, hopefully, so they are super knowledgeable what they do. So you got to incentivize them, though, because everyone knows that nobody has 2 or 3 minutes a day or even 15 minutes a day to crank out a blog. But the idea is to incentivize them, encourage them, and make it as easy as possible, make it frictionless. There's a blogging outline, like a little starter template from content or from marketing profs. It's the Content Rules book. If you Google that, you can download this thing, and we use that, and we sent it out to the company, and it's just telling people, they're like, what the hell do I write about? It's like, you write about what you're an expert in. You write about what's trending, whatever. Just give us something. Give us something in your voice that's helpful, that's not pitching Marketo. And it works wonderfully. And the other part of that is, the other folks who don't know what to tweet about or Facebook post about, we use a platform called Gaggleamp, and there's another one called Advocate. But basically those two, it just queues up all your best messages. It's super cool. Into a little queue, they sign up and it tweets them out. It just shows you load them up with your best messages around the company, not big salesy stuff. And now the employees can share your message like very effortlessly. And it looks very natural. The tweets look like retweets. The posts, these LinkedIn signals, these social signals are super important for SEO too. So the more social signals you have out there, I'm getting carried away here. You'll outrank your competitors when people are searching in those social channels. It's super important. But again, make it as easy and frictionless as possible. And there's tools out there, and just good old-fashioned sitting down and saying, "Here's a template. Give me your thoughts." We got an editor who'll crank this into a blog post for you.
So, I mean, one of the questions I have, Patience here at Kenshu, which is all about search, very proven.
And social, yeah.
And social, sorry, but, search first.
Right.
Marketo's all about marketing automation. Those are two very proven channels. Do you think social will ever stack up to search and email marketing?
So I don't know if I would call them equals, right? I think that they play well together. I think there's synergies between the two. I think advertisers were burned early on looking at Facebook for what it wasn't, right? Hoping that it was a bottom funnel type channel, and it's really top funnel, mid funnel type channel. And so I think when you accept it for what it is, although Facebook's trying to mitigate some of that by including now different ad units that are more specific for DR advertisers, I think that they all play really well together, and I think it's even apparent when you're working with Facebook compared to Google. Google gives you 4 months to implement any changes that they've made into their product, and with Facebook now being an SPMD, we have like 30 days, right? So, they're so prolific with what they're coming out, and they're testing stuff, and Facebook's model in social right now is it's better done than perfect, right? So just get it out and test it. So I think there's still testing. In social, it's still a lot of testing going on, so there is still a lot of newness. I don't, like I said, I think that it will stabilize a little bit more and normalize out there and hopefully become a little bit easier for marketers to understand and when to use what ad units, but I don't know that they'll ever be equal because I don't think that they're exactly the same.
I think, though, that the line between social and search is blurring. I mean, if you look at what Google is trying to do in driving usage of the Google Plus platform, they're really making it important for you to make sure that the authors on your blog have a Google profile and that those are linked so that when you search for keywords and there's an article that has an author on Google Plus, that will rank higher in search results than a blog post that doesn't have that same tag. So Google is kind of maneuvering us to use their platform and surfacing social results in line with other organic results, so that as a company you want to be in social to influence search.
And to your point, Twitter doesn't consider themselves a social network. They consider themselves more aligned with search.
But it's interesting, though, because Google's never going to tell us the exact algorithm, right? But their idea is to show you the most relevant topic that you're searching on and the most relevant results. And now the new algorithm, they have told us this, that it's the social signals are playing a factor in there. The more, if a piece of content has more tweets, more shares, more plus ones, more likes, more comments, all that stuff, it's going to play a role. The Google authorship, but if there's one thing you take away from today, get Google authorship on your blog. There's these huge blog posts on how to do it. It's 3 steps. I've distilled this down to the simplest form. And they get more clicks, it shows up better. Google says, I trust this person. The person clicking on that article says, there's a little guy says, hey, how you doing? I trust him, and they're getting more clicks, and it's
It
showing
just
more
has
relevancy.
a picture next to it.
Yeah,
And
it's
people
saying,
will
hey.
click things that have pictures next to them.
But yeah, Google authorship, that's super important. It's easy to do. Everyone should be doing that. And Google's going to make you play their game with Google Plus, man. If you don't have your profile filled out and linked back, and you're not getting plus ones on your homepage, on your blog, you're going to suffer. You're going to be below your competition in rankings. There's a time, of course, I'm not going to tell you exactly how the social signals are tying in there, but they are definitely playing a role. And they're moving towards, they're getting so smart about this. Not only is it how many shares you have, but it's who's sharing it. If this person with 12,000 Twitter followers tweets an article, that's going to have more relevance than somebody with 50 or whatever. But it's incredible space right now. But the idea is if you're not there, you're already behind, and you got to get caught up.
That's very, very good advice there. You guys each mentioned different social networks just in those answers. Obviously, Facebook is the 800-pound gorilla. Is it all about Facebook, or is Facebook sort of, losing their share of importance? And, what are the networks now to handle different new demographics, younger people that are not spending as much time on Facebook? What are the top networks, and where do the new ones come from? Who are the new ones that matter for marketers?
We kind of use, you mentioned the hub and spoke model. We kind of use a hub and spoke model for distributing content on social networks, and the spokes are kind of prioritized. So up at the top, the blog is the dude. So, once the blog post is live, we start with Facebook, we go to Twitter, we go to LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest, SlideShare, XYZ down the list. And, depending on the bandwidth of the team, we may not make it all the way to the bottom. There are certain things that work better for Pinterest. Like if we go to an event and we have a great album of photos, Pinterest is the obvious place to promote that. So in some ways it depends on the content, but I do think that, for us, the leaders are clearly Facebook and Twitter still.
Yep. And by what fraction? Is that 80% of the value? If you got rid of all the others, is Facebook and Twitter 80% of everything you're doing?
Easily, yeah.
The things you can do on Facebook are frightening. I mean, you can get so granular with that advertising that you can get in the open graph. Check your privacy settings because that's super important. But it's
As a consumer?
yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're a business, you want your stuff to show up, of course. But you can, in Facebook, you can get in there and you can find your competitor and you can find who's commenting and use their IDs, their Facebook IDs, and actually target them with news feeds ads. Right? This is insane. But it's so granular. And I think you were talking about these custom audiences where you can upload email addresses and target these folks based on their email address, and we use it to track them where they're at the funnel. If we have their name and they're in the middle of the funnel, we'll try to get them to watch a demo. If they're down the bottom of the funnel, I'm giving away a lot of secrets here. We say, hey,
That's the whole idea.
Marketo's #1 software or something like that. But I get so excited. I feel like Chris Farley, the motivational speaker on SNL, live down by the river in a van. Anyway, but yeah, I think it's just about the bottom line for me is you have to have a presence, a foundation on every single channel. No matter what your product is, no matter how much your niche is, you have to have a presence everywhere. If you don't, you're missing opportunities. You're simply missing opportunities. It's search. It has to play with the social signals I talked about, and it has to do with just how your consumers and your prospects and customers want to consume their content because they are in charge. They're telling you, and you have to play by their rules.
Right. And Facebook's doing a lot right now, and I'm sure you guys have noticed seeing all the different types of formats on your mobile phone now, install this application, all the sponsored stories, and now they're offering rich media in the news feed. So on your mobile, you can actually click into a unit that expands, and you can take different actions within that unit, and you can even purchase something in that unit, and then it will just shrink, and you never leave the news feed, right? So I think we still haven't seen everything that Facebook has in its bag of tricks yet, especially on mobile. 80% of the time people spend on their device, they're actually spending in applications, and a lot of that's on Facebook. And so I think Facebook realizes that they have to capitalize this. It's in all their earnings report. It's definitely, they consider themselves a mobile company now. So I think Facebook is going to be king, I think, for a long time. As far as reaching different generations now, I have 2 teenage daughters, and they spend all their time on Twitter and Tumblr and Snapchat. And, so I don't think any of those are really monetizing well yet. And I don't know where it's going to stop to be something, I think Pinterest is good, but actually my daughter isn't on Pinterest, right? So I can't speak to where I think the next generation, where we're going to reach them, but I think it's just too tough to tell at this point.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask the audience if you have questions. Okay, good. So go ahead. You had his hand up earlier. So.
I just had one back to your earlier remarks regarding sort of company blogs and that's the center of the universe. I write occasionally for larger publications like Ego and Information Week and Forbes, and my company would like me to do things for the company. And the question is, if I have an hour to, let's say, even 8 hours to get a really perfectly thought out blog post done, why would I want to place it on my company's blog where it can reach maybe 3 people, or maybe 10, or maybe lucky day 1,000, versus another place where it will reach 1 million or 5 million. And for that matter, if companies are spending their time, like to take a different example, let's say you kind of didn't have a writer on staff, why would you spend your energy with that as opposed to, let's say, getting to a reporter slash contributor slash analyst who could have a much greater, voice for the same time spent?
I mean, it's a very good point, and prioritization is difficult for everyone. I tend to work on things that I like to work on, as we all do, as opposed to what makes the most sense. That's how I operate. But to answer your question, I think it's a very good question. Of course, you should, go where the audience is. That's number one. But number two, if you have an hour to crank out some thoughts, if you're a good writer, I would think that you can crank out some thoughts around your company blog, edit it down. But the real magic is if you don't have a following on your blog, you have to build that up. It's super important, right? You need those link backs. And you need other people linking to your blog. So how do you do that? That's when you put it into the paid strategy. take your blog post, make it a thought leadership piece, quote some other folks so they're not linked back to it, drop an infographic in there, get a ton of link backs on infographics. But the idea is to put, if you have the time to develop your own company blog, put a little bit of paid behind that, especially in Facebook. And targeting on Facebook, you could write a blog post. I wrote a blog post about the music industry that I was having a little issue with, and I targeted every person who worked at these record companies, and specifically, so it was showing up. And these are 5 cents a click to get these people to do it. So you could take your blog post from your company, find all the people you want to reach from a PR standpoint and from just an interest standpoint, target them specifically so they're the only ones who are going to see that post, and get it for a nickel a click, get that traffic back to your site. Super cheap, $150, you could drive a couple thousand links, no problem.
I think it also depends on what you're writing about. I mean, I wrote a blog post on project management lessons learned in the NFL playoffs, and we put that on the Liquid Planner blog. I wrote an article about work-life balance hacks, and we put that on GeekWire, which is the Seattle tech blog. So, if you are appealing to a larger audience and not necessarily promoting your product, but your point of view, that's a great article to go syndicate out somewhere. You'll build awareness for who you are, and you'll link back to your company in your bio.
So then it seems like the double-edged sword is that you don't necessarily have the relevance that sort of directly drives sales, right? It seems like it's a catch-22. The broader you are and the more general interest you are, you could write about will Hillary run in 2016 or whatever, and that's great, but then how do you link it back? And then the more tied you are into your product and the less.
Yeah, this is again where it gets into it's kind of fuzzy, right? Like, so you write for a publication that has very broad reach. You include your Twitter handle in your bio. From that, you maybe get a couple links to your site. You get a few, if you're lucky, a few hundred followers on Twitter. There, you're also talking about your company or your product. So you're building relationships with your readers. And if you do that successfully, if they like what you have to say, they will start looking to you as a thought leader. So it's not like instant hit necessarily, like instant ROI from that piece, but you are developing that profile for you as an author.
Other questions?
Yeah, old Intel SVP used to say you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in proportion. You guys have talked a lot about talking. I'd like to hear a little more about your social listening strategies and how that plays into the mix.
We're not Cisco yet, where we have these, or Salesforce, we have these hundreds, and we have a pretty good following on. We have, I don't know the exact number, 70,000 Twitter followers or whatnot, but my goal is to hear and see every single mention of Marketo around the world in real time and respond to it if necessary. Not so much on the social channels that I pay attention to, but news, media, and blogs. I'm a writer, I'm a blog guy first, I'm a social media strategist second. So I care about what really makes an impact. And to me, blog and news media, and that's where the real impact is. And social is a great channel to reach those as well, and to amplify that. But I hear every single, we respond to every single mention of Marketo globally in near real time.
And I almost think that listening's a given now, which is why I think we didn't bring it up, maybe. But
I just wanted to hear about it.
yeah, I mean, I think that if you're a marketer and you're not measuring kind of brand perception and how your marketing is affecting that, I think it's something you should have been doing a long time ago. Whether you're using a free tool or a cheap tool or something more robust. But yeah, and obviously responding to your customer service requests there.
Anybody else in the back?
Yeah, I'm just going back to Patient's comment about the generational thing. Between my wife and I, we have 6 children we're responsible for. And one of them is on Facebook, and the rest can't get over telling him how dumb he is.
Yeah. Yeah, my 16-year-old's not on Facebook.
Down to about 19. So who is the audience you're actually dealing with when you're dealing with it? It's certainly not me. And it's certainly not my wife, and it's certainly not 5 out of the 6 kids. Where are these people coming from?
Yeah, I mean, there's 1 billion people, right? So there's a lot of people on Facebook. It's
How many people in this room are on Facebook? So it's almost everybody in the
How
room.
often and for how long?
That's a better question.
28 minutes of yeah. I mean,
How many people in this room are on there every day?
We gotta find something better.
and how many of you? And
How many people in the room are on there 5 times a day?
And how many walk around with your mobile checking Facebook, right? You know, and sometimes you probably don't even realize how
That's right.
often you pull it up.
I think a related question is Twitter versus LinkedIn. too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Part of that, though, if you're a marketing professional, you have to use it and engage and understand it. If you're not posting, you don't understand it to even post for your company. I find
Yeah.
that-
And the great thing about Facebook, although we hate to admit it, with their granularity and targeting around your interests and the way that they're leveraging social context, is that Facebook's goal is to try to act like the party, right? Act like you're going out with your friends and your friend just said, hey, I just bought these cool pair of running shoes. I, dropped my pace 1 minute per mile, and you're out there buying those shoes, right? It's the same thing on Facebook, and that's the goal is if I see now that my friend has read an article or purchased an item or RSVP'd for an event, I'm much more likely to do it, right? So that's the way Facebook's actually reaching people. It's not about the right-hand rail ads that you probably don't look at. It's something that you're seeing if you have, 45 friends and you see something come through your news feed that's interesting from your brother, you're probably going to click on it. So that's the way in which Facebook's reaching people right now.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we only care about sales, right? Good. Now, you guys are great, absolutely great, and I'm sure there are probably 1,000 people like you, and maybe 10,000 that are almost like you, and maybe 100,000 that are, and they're all doing the same thing, trying to build awareness and interest, and now all of a sudden there's noise, and this is the paradox of information choice. At some point, people say, screw it. And I'm wondering, number one, when we hit that point. Number two, how you drive people from awareness and interest, especially junior level people, so that they feel comfortable enough recommending it to the people that actually have the money, who probably don't pay attention to this anyhow. Right? I'm just wondering how this whole process is gonna play out.
There's a great book called Grouped by Paul Adams from Facebook about the specific overload of information right now. And it talks about how you receive information, how you share information, and there's too much to go around, so it's absolutely imperative that you rely on your friends. And it talks about how small of a group that actually is that actually influences you. And so when you're targeting people on Facebook, you're not targeting influencers just in general, right? You're targeting individuals with messages that resonate with them as an individual, because then they'll share it with that small group. So don't just target somebody who has a blog, and he has, 40,000 followers, because there's only a small group of people that actually really, really trust him. And so I think, yes, there is information overload, but that's the goal of Facebook, trying to limit how much you see, and advertisers hate that because they're saying, now I can't reach all of my fans. When I post something out, now I have to pay to promote that post, that's screwed up, right? But it's trying to protect this exact, effect of having users say, screw it, I'm getting off Facebook.
I can show you actual metrics on sales, but the thing you have to look at the big picture here, right? This is another channel that wasn't here a few years ago. So, I wrote a blog, I have like 70,000 half-written blog posts I gotta get finished, like later today, I think. But the idea
You're doing
is,
other stuff you like to do.
priorities, anyway, but the idea is, like, you're more likely to see Bigfoot than get a customer on a big ticket item from Twitter, right? Directly from Twitter as a first touch. Not going to happen. Well, there's been sightings, right? It does happen. I have a blog half written called the $41,000 tweet. And I sell, I'm in the B2B world, so I have long buying processes, these big ticket items. But it does happen. That person first came into contact with Marketo through Twitter. We tracked it with a lead source, a landing page, inside Twitter, and we're tying it back to the revenue cycle. But the other big picture to pay attention to is these social signals are accelerating the funnel, right? So now you got them in, they might be anonymous, or you might have their email, but you have SlideShare is an awesome, underrated accelerator. SlideShare accelerates quicker than any channel that we've measured over the past 18 months. It's insane. But the idea is all these little touch points play a role in the funnel now, the new sales funnel. These Twitter touch point, a Facebook touch point, SlideShare, Pinterest, not really, I don't really like Pinterest. But it's the whole funnel, and these social signals are accelerating the buying cycle and shortening it down. So you have to be there, or you're missing out.
Yeah, well, let me add to that. Part of the way we see it impact sales is that, when we are, people find us through search. They're searching for a solution, we come up, they click on us. As they start to get to know our product and our company, they want to understand, who are these people? What are they doing? Who is behind this company? So they go to our Facebook page, to check us out. They go to our Twitter feed to check us out. You know, this is part of the vetting process with vendor selection now. Same goes for people you're trying to recruit. Same goes to partners that you might want to work with. So it goes beyond, you know, specifically lead generation activities to representing your brand.
So this is all about targeting, so that you make sure that the people that really matter are getting the message through the appropriate channel, be that Twitter / whatever.
It's all trial and error. You
Yeah.
gotta have freedom, you gotta have budget, and you gotta have somebody who's got a little wit to them.
You have to
be funny,
fun.
man. You gotta
So
be.
this is half of my ad budget is wasted, I just don't know which.
Well, no, not anymore, but
Now
In-
80%, yeah.
I would say with the technology these days, every campaign should be measured and tracked back, and you should know exactly where every dollar's going. So I agree with you in a sense, but
Thanks.
Orange sweater?
Sure. So how do you approach engaging people on these social platforms where they're living a combination of their professional and personal lives on the platform? Any
There's still individuals on Facebook, right? So they still have likes and interests. I mean, if you're talking about the fact that they registered a page to their name, and is that what you're talking about, or?
Just more conceptually, how do you appreciate that they're living two facets of their life in one place?
Yeah.
Are you talking about their employees or people they're targeting?
People they're targeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're still targeting a 35-year-old male that lives in San Francisco, that likes the Beatles, that, you know, potentially drives this type of car, that is married. You know, you're still targeting that person, right? And maybe he works at this company, so maybe that's part of your targeting criteria. So you're still an individual no matter what you're doing for work, and that could play into the targeting or not. But at the end of the day, somebody's targeting you because they know that you like Sony TVs, right?
I think it comes down to content too. I mean, people on Facebook want to see personality. They want to see who you are. I mean, if you look at our Facebook wall, you will see some really crazy stuff, and it gets great response. Every Tuesday we have a team lunch. We put what we have for lunch on Facebook. And 75 people will like that picture of what we had for lunch. And it's crazy, it doesn't make any logical sense, but people are like, oh, Liquid Planner's having pizza today. Awesome. And I mean, it's kind of funny, but they respond to that kind of insight into who we are as a company. And that's one example. I could give you 10 more, but it's not like, our white paper on 5 ways to be a better project manager. It's like, what's written on our chalkboard in our office. So, I think you have to, as Jason pointed out, find some ways to have fun and remember that these people are human beings, and they aren't going to read your white paper more than they are the 14 other white papers that came into their feed today.
my secret weapon, we released the definitive guide to marketing automation, which is a huge piece of content we give away for free, and we wanted a way to introduce it to social. So I got my secret weapon, very secret weapon. It's called Fiverr. I found this guy on Fiverr.com, and he wrote me a jingle. I wrote the lyrics. It's called, and it's the funniest thing I ever heard, but it sounds like the freecreditreport.com band. It's that good. And he put a little video for it.
It's that
For
good.
$10,
It's that good.
For $10, we drove a pre-sale campaign around a jingle. I think we were the first people to write a jingle about a piece of content. But I don't know, Guinness didn't call or anything, I don't know that for sure. But I like to think we did. But it's just again, you gotta have fun, you gotta have personality.
Well, let's end on that. I think we're out of time. Thanks for the great discussion.